When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Put my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just...
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all and more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. It's Memorial Day, and let's start the week off with a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for another day. We thank that you allowed us to be in the land of the living one more time. Thank you for the use of our fingers, our toes. Thank you for the ability to see, to hear, to touch, to smell, to feel. God bless our audience. Bless this news outlet to do the job of inspiring and informing. And we promise, Lord, to give you all the praise and all the glory. In your mighty, matchless, and majestic name, we say hallelujah and amen. All right, we got with us the one and only attorney Robert Fulton Dashiell. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Good. Haven't seen you in a month of Sundays. Just wanted to make sure you haven't crossed over into the land of Donald Trump, have you?
No, that is a place that no self-respecting black person would be, in my opinion.
Self-respected. What is self-respect? We don't even know what that is anymore.
Well, let me explain what I mean. In the land of Trump, you have the Proud Boys, you have the Al-Anon, you have the Steve Bannons, you have the Steve Millers, you have the KKK, you have the January 6th rioters, you have all of those people are in the land of Trump. There's no way in God's green earth that there's a place there for black people, in my opinion.
Steve Bannon, Steve Miller, the Proud Boys,
QAnon, Truth Social, go on and on and on. All of the Trump surrogates and minions, that Marjorie Taylor Greene, that whole bunch. There's no way anybody self-respecting black could be part of that group.
You know, I was watching the comments of this Marjorie Taylor Greene lady. She has a vitriol with her that seems like a Klansman.
Well, it's hard to tell these days. You know, the sheets don't always come in. The sheets are not always coming in white like they used to be. They come in pastel colors these days. But I think the sister from Florida had it exactly right. Or Texas, I'm sorry, the sister from Texas.
Racism is so tiring, Mr. Bob. It's so tiring.
It is. But what better do we have to do on a daily basis than try to make it better for those that come after us? I mean, that's our responsibility. We
At
can't
some
quit.
point, doesn't God get impatient with people like that?
He may, but that's in his own time, and that's above my pay grade. See, God doesn't have a time clock. He operates in his.
Marjorie Taylor Greene reminds you of Bull Connor and the guy Wallace down in Alabama when they were crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge and the civil rights movement was in full force, and there's Rosa Parks getting up for her dignity. And this woman is a throwback to an era 55, 60 years ago. What's wrong with her?
Well, it's not so much what's wrong with her, it's what continues to be wrong with the country.
People like her.
No, but that's because nothing has changed, Donnie. We have managed somehow or another for a long period of time to kick the proverbial can down the road. We have studiously avoided the issue of who's in charge, who decides, who does this country really belong to. We have avoided that issue. We as Black folk, we have accepted for too long the notion that our stake in it didn't begin until the 13th and 14th Amendment. We have eschewed the notion that we had birthrights. We have eschewed the notion that we have planter rights when our feet hit the ground, just like other people. But we have accepted the notion that our place here in this country is defined by white folks, and once you accept that, it's all downhill.
Mr. Bob, we are 15% of the population. There's a fight at every turn. If it isn't a mental fight, it's a physical fight. If it isn't physical, it's psychological. If it isn't psychological, it's beyond that. It's traumatic. Where do we get a break? Where does a Black person get a moment to just breathe?
Well, we got to do like our grandmothers told us. We got to keep our hand on the rock. You know, we got to keep our hand on the rock. We can't heal ourselves. We can only get through this valley if we have enough faith in what's on the other side. And the bridge between here and there is only by faith. If you don't have that, you ain't gonna make it. Because you're right, anxiety, depression, stress are killers in our community. Much more so than it's documented, much more so than we even talk about. We think that drug abuse and whatever are the cause. They're just symptoms. But we have to live a dichotomous life from the beginning to the end. We are at best, dual personalities. We at the same time we have the inner calling to be ourselves, but we live in a world where success is measured by how closely we can resemble others.
You bring to mind one of my favorites.
That Souls of Black folk. That's right.
Two souls, two strivings, two warring ideals.
That's right.
Whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed because we've not faced up. We've kicked the can down the road. Who really is in charge? Who does this country? Who does the world belong to? And as a people, we've followed the course. We think we followed the course of water, which is the course of least resistance. The fact of the matter is there is no course of least resistance. All resistance is the same.
I'd like to thank Dr. Tyrone Taborn. This segment is brought to you by STEMCityUSA.com. What have you been up to, Mr. Bob? We just had an election. Were you involved?
I was, and I'm happy to say that one of my favorite candidates was very successful. Angela Alsobrook was successful, even though there were times when I doubted it. But once I met her and talked to her, and so I came to believe in her, and she was successful. We didn't share that success, or that success wasn't manifested in some other elections. But the election is over. Now's the time. Now's the time for people who want to see the best outcome for the city, for the state, to come together and work together for that. This is not a time to be, taking retaliation and that sort of. Those are petty games that we cannot afford as a people.
Mr. Bob, there's a presidential election that's still coming in November.
Yes.
Where do you stand?
I'm going to write in the name of the candidate that I want to be president. I don't know who that is yet. It's neither. It is not the candidate that's being offered by either the so-called two major political parties, either Republican or the Democrat or the Libertarian, for that matter. I don't know whose name I'm going to write in, but I would say this. I would name that person, except that it would be, I don't want to put them in the same category as the two people that are running. I don't think either of the people that's running from either Trump or Biden should be the next president of the United States.
Well, damn. We got a lot to unpack here. So you're not going with Sleepy Joe, huh? What's the problem with Sleepy Joe?
When Joe Biden declared himself a Zionist and committed and continues to commit unlimited resources, bombs, munitions, armaments to people who are engaged in genocide, then he not only lost, he created a chasm, a disconnect, because you see, black folk like the underdog. This is a David and Goliath. This has turned into a David and Goliath story. We like the underdog. And so do our children, our generations. That's what's going on the college campuses. This is not ideological. This is about humanity. And so, and when Biden made that declaration and then showed what he meant by it, by his continued providing of armament, then he lost a tremendous connection, not just with black folk, but with young people. That disconnect may cost him the election. Trump, I've already indicated why. Trump is all about Trump. And don't get me wrong, I have no fear of Trump or his policies. We will survive because our grandmother gave us what we needed to survive. Because we had to learn how to make do in times of trouble. That's not new for us. But the fact of the matter is, the election ought to be an opportunity for us to pick the person that we want, not among those who other people tell us we need to select from.
Mr. Bob, you're going to get us in trouble. This is a 9-1 Democratic city and a 2-1 Democratic state. We're in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, but nobody was born a Democrat or a Republican. No, in fact, nobody was born black or white. Those are all social constructs that we put upon people as they grow up. We've got to disabuse ourselves of those notions, those confines, those constraints, and think for ourselves. Who is it that really? What do I believe? What am I? What do I stand for? Why am I here? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And who shares my purpose and vision? Whoever that is, in my mind, that's whose name I'm going to write in for president. I don't give a damn who the Republicans want or who the Democrats want. I don't care, and it's not a wasted vote. The system fears most those who are willing to challenge it, and I don't care that it may not happen this election or next election. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and David's idea was to build the temple, but he didn't build it. His son did. Which tells me that it's a journey. It's a process. Life is not an event.
Well, I'm going to send this invite to Andy Pierre in case he wants to join us. He says, I was with you until the black or white thing. I didn't really hear you.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Andy, come on and join us if you want to articulate that. I'm just thinking that as this state goes in, I understand we're talking about the presidential, but in addition to that presidential, we will be voting for control of the U.S. Senate.
Right.
Also Brooks on one hand, Hogan on the other. And there are those who would say Hogan is going to do all of they liken him unto Mitch McConnell.
Well, Hogan is a lot more like Biden than what people believe. In other words,
that's what I thought.
Hogan believes that there's still a room for centrists. Hogan believes that there's still a place where you can where there's still a middle ground, that you can somehow find a principle that both sides share and can embrace in spite of their disagreement. There is no such place. There is no middle ground anymore. Trump eviscerated that. Trump eliminated the middle ground. Trump says you're either with me or you're against me. You either kiss the ring or you don't. And unfortunately, those who call themselves Republicans have elected to kiss the ring. And there's no example of that I can think of a so-called middle grounder being successful within the Republican Party. Now, Johnson, the speaker, was successful in getting some needed legislation passed, but he had to do a god-awful thing. He had to go get some Democratic votes to make it happen. I mean, according to the real Republicans, he's going to die and go to hell for that. I mean, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and Greg Abbott, and Trump, you can't do that. And in fact, that's what put Trump now at odds with some of his own people. Trump now praises Johnson as somebody who he endorses, and his own people are saying, no. He's a traitor. He's a rhino. We're going to vote for you. We're not going to support him because he's not part of the MAGA group. He's not part of our clan. So and Hogan will find, if he were to be successful, and I hope he's not, if he were to be successful, he would find no greater success than the Johnson type, which means he'd be in no man's land.
Andy Pierre, welcome to the show.
How we doing, Donnie? How we doing?
Good morning, Andy. How are you?
I'm all right. No, what I was talking about earlier was that black and white is a social construct. I'm not sure I agree with that. Like we are born black, we are born white, just like, everything. It's like, I want to almost say like it's like a species. Like when a person, you mix it with a white person, you have a whole new species, so I don't know if I want to accept that it's a social construct. There has to, there's a little more behind it. Let
me explain why. Because being black doesn't just refer to the color of your skin. It's a cultural component. Being black is a whole set of beliefs, is a whole set of behaviors, is a whole set of expectations, and nobody's born with those things. Nobody's born with those things. Yes, we are born different colors, but God didn't label black or white. You don't find that in any text that refers to anything that God ever said. God was not colorblind, and he didn't suffer from sleep apnea. He didn't leave us in the oven too long. We're different by design and by intention, not by accident. But the idea, the concept of what that means to be different is one that we put on it as people. God, that's not God. God did. There's no competition in God's people. You're either saved or you're not. So there's no ranking. There's no sergeants. There's no captains. So the construct of what it means to be our color or what it means to be a different color is something that we assign to it as people, not God.
Okay.
You eat collard greens, Andy?
Excuse me?
Do you eat collard greens?
Yeah, I eat collard greens.
Do you eat them undercooked or overcooked?
I don't know how to cook them, so I just eat them when they're available.
Or you eat them overcooked?
That's how grandmama cooked them. And
you come in there with some undercooked collard greens if you want. You're going to get chased out of Thanksgiving dinner. So we had a couple of upsets in this last election. Robert Stokes, Eric Costello. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Bob?
I'm not surprised really at either one. Stokes, I mean, Costello, I'm not surprised because of his close alignment with of course, Sheila. And I think that brought him into this alignment with some of the other members who were more closely aligned with Brandon. Stokes, it's a question of turnout. I mean, we had a very, very low turnout. And it only takes
70,000 out of 500,000.
Yeah. So it only takes a few votes. I mean, nobody got a mandate in this election. I mean, that this election really doesn't reflect the will of the majority of the people. It simply reflects the will of the majority of those who voted. And unfortunately, not enough people participated, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was just essentially this election cycle was about who could turn out their base.
Yeah.
Who could turn out their base. Nobody spent money trying to bring in new voters. Like, it was just all about bringing out the people who already support them.
Well, that's the rule of incumbency anyway. Incumbents never want to bring out new voters. Incumbents only want to bring out voters who are loyal to them. And I think there were mistakes made. I don't know the Stokes or the Costello campaign well enough to evaluate how they ran it, but there were some other campaigns that I think where there was very serious mistakes made, and I think that even in the low turnout could have come out differently had those things not occurred.
Care to share? Like what?
Well, for example, I think that the whole debacle with Thiru Veneraji and his endorsement, I mean, that backfired. That backfired completely. I mean, the minute that it was published that he had gone to, whether it's true or not, by the way, because I don't know if it's true, but the minute it was published that he went first to Brandon to proffer his support, when he came back to offer his endorsement to Sheila, she should have said thanks, but no thanks. She said, I appreciate your endorsement, but the fact of the matter is I'm going to stick with those who really support me. Because when he
Sheila made any, I don't think Sheila made a deal with him.
Right, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. She made a deal thinking that she would get his supporters. He made a deal to give his supporters to Brandon by going to Brandon first, because that said to his supporters, he's my first choice, not Sheila. And so that was a signal that he gave. So she didn't get his supporters either voted for Brandon or they stayed home, but they did not vote for her. That's what I mean when I say backfire.
See, that's the one thing that folks give. Okay, the people who were supporters of Thiru, the people who were polled in the 11% of the supporters of Thiru were folks who did not support Brandon or Sheila. It's not because they supported Thiru. So the fact that anybody expected that Thiru was going to be able to get those people to do a damn thing was ridiculous to me. Because it's like, dude, you did not persuade them to do anything. The only thing you did was point out the flaws in everybody else and say, hey, but I'm here. They don't like you. They just don't like the other people more.
Well,
but that's my perspective.
Thiru attacked Brandon on real issues, on the BGE conduit. That's a real issue. That was an issue where the administration went against the vote of the people as expressed in the most recent charter amendment, but he did it anyway. Thiru attacked the fact that we don't know who are members of Safe Streets. And how they get paid and why we can't know who they are. I mean, Thiru attacked Brandon on real issues that Sheila refused to. So I think that when Thiru's people could not, you're right, they could not vote for Brandon because he had been the subject of Thiru's attack. So if they wanted to vote, who was left for them to vote for? If they weren't going to go with Bob Wallace, he was too far down the food chain. He had no chance. If Thiru had not gone to Brandon seeking whatever he sought, and had withdrawn and immediately, without a thought, without taking a breath, said, "I'm supporting Sheila because I know she supports the issues," then I think she had a chance of actually getting some of his support. But
he had to come out and support Brandon, because here's the reason why. is that he went so hard on Sheila. Like, yeah, you pointed out all of the cool things that he talked that he went after Brandon on, but he went hella hard on Sheila, talking about she's corrupt, this, that, and she went hard on Sheila. And then for you to turn around, backpedal, and be like, oh yeah, this person I just called corrupt and all of that, I want you to vote for him. That was never going to play. He had the only way was to hope that this thing backfired. Like him, throw his support behind Brandon, and then it backfires to the people be like, well, you know what? If he's with Brandon, I'm gonna vote for Sheila. That was the only play that he had. And he didn't have. He went through the weight behind
he
Sheila.
was
And I
late.
really think that hurt him.
He was late.
That hurt Sheila.
He was
Late in the game.
Very
He was
late.
still on the ballot. He still walked away with, what was it, 5% of the vote?
He made a choice to support Sheila at a time when people couldn't. Some had already voted.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, all of that is true. But some had, but I don't know, but I suspect most had not. I mean, that I don't know how many. I don't know the votes from election day versus the mail-in versus the early voting. But I suspect that most of the votes came on election day. And
but the fact is that his name was still on the ballot. Like he went.
I mean, that
if
always.
Your name is on that.
That always happens. Some people never get the memo. I mean, some people. I mean,
there's a deadline. There's a deadline for this. Like for me, if you're coming to me and you're talking about, oh, you're going to drop out of the race and you're going to endorse me, that means absolutely nothing to me if it doesn't happen before the print deadline. Like if you're not dropped out before the printing deadline and those ballots are printed, like there's no allegiance here. Like you're on the ballot, you are the competition, you are the ops.
Why is that?
Because your name is still going to be on the ballot. You're going to get some throwaway votes. He walked away with at least 5% of the vote. How much did Sheila lose by?
Are you suggesting that people voted for him even though they knew that it was impossible for him to win because he had withdrawn? They cast their vote for him anyway?
Yes.
And you think everybody saw that he withdrew?
And if that's true, what does that say about the people who voted that way?
Well, it says more about the fact that we do a really trash job at informing the public as to what's going on. We relied on the news, the network news, to inform the public that he dropped out. We relied on social media where the algorithms of everybody is different based off of their own, movements as to where he dropped out. At no point in time, the only real true way for the people to have been informed that he was no longer in the race was for him to not be on the ballot. Because he was on news. The thing is, it's like he's a regular face. He runs all the damn time. He has people who do like him. I guess he's a firebrand. He's like Giuliani. So people like Giuliani in New York. He's the Baltimore Giuliani. And so,
well, I don't think he's the Baltimore Giuliani. Giuliani actually won in New York at one time. Theroux has never won.
I get it.
So I thought
Theroux could win. Theroux can win. He can win if he would just define himself. As opposed to spending all of his money and time attacking everybody else. Define yourself. Who are you? What do you bring to the table?
And what position do you really want?
Or what party are you really a member of? But my question is, do you think that the people that voted for Theroux did that not knowing that he had withdrawn, or in spite of the fact, regardless of the fact?
I think they did it not knowing he withdrew.
Some of both. I say some of both.
Okay.
Because we presume that everybody has caught the news in real time, as have we. But it does. You do bring up the aspect of David Smith, and let's not forget the new black man in the middle of all of that, Armstrong Williams. I wrote an editorial and it essentially said, "Dear Armstrong, we don't know you and you can't endorse over here because you don't live here."
Yeah, that was another mistake that I think that the Dixon campaign made, as in terms of defining the relationship with David Smith. I mean, the campaign allowed the story to be spun in such a way that Dixon supposedly was under the control or made commitments to Smith or Sinclair or that ilk. The fact of the matter is, I would, on the other hand, would have said, David Smith is the one who got us term limits, which the people wanted.
Yes. How could black people vote for term limits, given all that we've gone through just to get in the door? And then we get some of our so-called best and brightest political minds who are carrying red, black, and green signs saying term limits. It's like, why don't you just put handcuffs on and one of those things they put on slaves? And I mean, damn.
I'm not sure whether you're for or against it, but I happen to be for.
I'm against term limits.
I happen to be very much for term limits because the number one objective of seeking political office ought to be to serve, and it ought to be able to serve it's not a career, it's not a profession. And if you serve 2 terms, look,
nobody said that to Mike Miller, nobody said that to Schaefer. These people
maybe not, but times change, Donnie. Just like years ago, to get judges on the bench, we came up with mandatory retirement at age 70. Well, that's come back to bite us in the proverbial butts, because those of us who managed to survive in the profession over the years and who now maybe have some time and presumably acquired some wisdom can't serve anymore. So what we have on the other hand is people who look like us, but whose backgrounds are so narrow, they either come from the state's attorney's office or the public defender's office or some government agency. They don't have enough life experiences to be able to bring the black experience into play in their profession. Then the ones of us who've lived long enough, who've seen enough, who've been around, who've been through enough rodeos, are too old now to serve. So you got to be careful what you pray for. You got to think of the long-term consequences, not just what's going to happen the next year or 2 or 3 years down the road, in my opinion.
Well,
so when it comes to term limits, I was going to say when it comes to term limits, I could go either way with them, but I find it real interesting that, because it's like if the seat doesn't have term limits, then you just have to beat the incumbent, right? So if this person is popular and if people likes him, he's going to keep winning. If people don't like him, if you could highlight his flaws, then he will lose, right? It just takes term limits is not really like people say, oh yeah, people go in there and make it a career, they stay there for 20, 30 years. People are voting for them to stay there. Like if you go out and you highlight the flaws and you do your due diligence and you run a real campaign and define yourself and really present yourself as an option, there's it's a 50-50. It's 50 plus 1 to win.
No. And
the term limits basically is saying that if you're a really popular legislator or whatever and you're in office and people keep voting to reelect you, let's stop you from being able to run again, reset so somebody else can have a chance. Now that's that everybody get a trophy mentality, and I'm okay with it, but it's weird. It goes against the competitive spirit of the whole thing. Like you gotta win, you gotta earn the win.
And the term limits overcome the power of incumbency. You just said a second ago that incumbents don't want to bring new voters out, and they don't. But you can use the power of incumbency. You're the only one that's in office. You're the only one that's got the bully pit. You're the only one that's got the microphone. You're the one who can call the news conference and they actually come when you call them, because you're the current office holder. That is an advantage. The only way to take away that advantage, and that advantage has nothing to do with the effectiveness of your service. That has to do with the effectiveness of your ground game on election day. That has nothing to do. Yes. That has nothing to do with the quality of your service. That has nothing to do with how well you have served or who you have served. That the only way to overcome term limits help to overcome that, because they say no matter how many games you play, no matter how many contributions you accept from how many developers or whoever, there comes a time when it's over. And that's why I support. No, term limits aren't the panacea, and there are advantages and disadvantages going either way. I agree with you. But the fact of the matter is, in this city, we have shown that not having term limits has not worked in the best interest of Black people. So let's try something different.
Well, the thing is, though, here's what I think needs to be different. These challengers,
It's
when
hard
you
to
guys are
digest
running,
that
set up.
Fox is pushing this issue.
Well, I see, that's the thing. I don't think we got to reject something just because of who's pushing it. This notion that you are against it because of who says it. Don't blame the messenger for the message. It was also Fox who promoted the charter amendment against giving away the BGE conduit. That was also a movement that was sponsored financially, at least, by David Smith.
Both of them are against Brandon Scott. They don't like Brandon.
I don't care who they don't like. The question is, are they good ideas? The idea that the city should give away the conduit, effectively give it away, ownership of the conduit to BG&E is a bad one.
Wasn't it a little too late for them to fight against that? Wasn't that already established when Jim Shea picked Brandon as his running mate to run for governor? And as soon as Brandon became mayor, he signed a $43 million deal with Venable.
Well, what did the transfer of the effective ownership of the conduit to BG&E, was that part of the deal that ultimately came into play in getting Brandon elected as mayor? Yes, I believe that to be the case. However, that has nothing to do with the charter amendment that was voted upon by the citizens of Baltimore, which says don't do that. And he did it anyway. He not only did it anyway, but he did it in a way that I think was unlawful, because I don't think that the Board of Estimates actually ever approved it, because I don't think that the Board of Estimates can ever have a meeting unless all members of the board I don't think it is a board unless the board is present. I don't think it is a board with just 3 people present, because that essentially means that the mayor doesn't even need to take into account the other 2 votes.
Both of you guys are pretty smart. I've been wanting to pose this question to our best and brightest. Is Martin O'Malley's hands still in Maryland and Baltimore politics?
Machine's definitely still operating.
I don't know. I could speculate, but I think we've got way too much speculation going on out there, and then people start believing it just because they hear it and just because they say it. And not
the Moore administration did bring back Paul Wiedefeld out of transportation, right?
Yeah.
And he was the guy that initially bumped Ricky Smith when O'Malley was governor, after Ricky had served 4 years under Ehrlich, right?
Right.
And my understanding is they were looking to bump Ricky again, but they kind of fell back on that. They decided not to go after Ricky's job.
Well, I mean, again, I don't really know, but I also don't know what it means to say O'Malley's behind it. I mean, but the question I would have is, who's behind O'Malley? I mean, because he's a political creature also. It didn't begin with him. He's a poster child for somebody. Who is behind O'Malley? That's who I want to know. And I don't know. I don't have a clue about who that is.
So from an African-American perspective, is there any difference between Martin O'Malley and Donald Trump?
No.
I think Trump
Martin
might be a
O'Malley
little bit better.
He did push the mass incarceration numbers, arresting Black people for sitting on their front steps.
Yeah, Trump
Donald Trump is no fan of people of color. I remember when he was president, you have Haiti on your T-shirt. I remember when the Haitians were coming across the border only to be met by men on horseback with whips.
Mm-hmm.
I say there's no difference.
Trump can't expect to vote for me.
Either one of them. I say there's no difference because we didn't choose either one of them. See, I reject this notion that we are obliged to choose from among those that others have already chosen. We got to create our own Manchurian candidate. We got to create our own system for identifying and raising up and nurturing and training those who we would have as our leaders, and not wait for Bob Dashiell to wake up one morning and say, "I want to be mayor." So let's see how many votes he can get.
Speaking of which, is Zeke Cohen primed to be the next mayor of Baltimore?
I think there are those who have that in their vision. I think there are
Andy?
those who definitely have that in their
I
vision.
can see that. I can see that being the play. That seems to be like the height line, Baltimore
Well,
City
how's
height
that going
line.
to work for Hassan Giordano? Because I know he wants to push Ivan Bates as mayor, doesn't he?
Oh, it's going to be an interesting one. That'd be a fun one. I might just pick a side on that one because I'm rocking with Bates all day.
Well,
Like, that's not going to be a new. If it's Bates v. Cohen, it's not going. There's not going to be no side for neutrality. Nobody's going to ride in the middle. It's going to be a dogfight all over the city.
yeah, I would say who I picked, but I except for Angela Alsabrook, I ain't picked a winner in 20 years. So I'm not. I'm not
What do you mean, Mr. Bob? You pick losers? What do you mean?
Daddy, I keep picking the people who I really want to win, and I don't pay too much attention to what other people think or the pros, and that shows me maybe I'm out of step with reality. I don't know, but
it's not that you're out of step with reality, right? You have a number of schools of thought when it comes down to political calculus, right? You have a number of people who can tell you who can look at the way everything is laid out and be like, okay, this person is probably going to win because of these factors and whatnot. Then you have a whole other group who is like, okay, these are factors, this is how it's laid out, but if we shift this and we move this and we carve out this, we might be able to get ourselves a little path through. So I'm in the latter school of thought where it's like no matter what the numbers say, there's always a way to change the damn dynamics.
Okay, Baltimore County, interesting race. The county executive has the Democratic nominee. He's going up against your girl, Andy.
Listen, that's gonna be I'm interested in seeing what the GC from Kim Clay Six Camp does with Johnny O. Johnny O has an operation. Johnny O has a machine going on up there. Then they've been banging out very hard. He's come from an old school family. Every representative from CD2 seemed to have been county exec before becoming congressman. So, like Kim and her out of state people have some history to beat back. Like CD2, and the thing is, back when it was Dutch Ruppersberger versus Kim, yes, Kim pulled well versus Dutch Ruppersberger. Nobody knows how Kim will pull versus Johnny O. Johnny O is no slouch. And I don't think they've done that math.
I think she's DOA, but like I said, I haven't picked a winner except for Angela Alsabrook. I haven't picked a winner in 20 years. So maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I shouldn't say that if I want Johnny O to win. And I do want Johnny O to win.
Going back to 2006 when Kwesi ran for U.S. Senate, I remember Martin O'Malley and Mike Miller speaking very negatively, condescendingly to him, put him off, didn't show him any respect, if you ask me, or very little. Angela Alsabrook gets every endorsement from the Eskimos to the Pilgrims. I mean, my God, she had a long list of endorsements. How's that going to work?
The game is usually different for black women than it is for black men, so I don't even sweat that too much.
Well, it didn't work like that for Donna Summer. I've said Donna Summer. What's the name?
Donna Edwards?
Yeah, the lady
Nobody
with the
likes
curl.
Donna Edwards.
Yeah,
I don't know if Donna Edwards likes Donna Edwards.
Yeah,
nobody likes her.
Yeah, she had some personality issues that stood in the way of her potential for success, I think. But Angela brings something to the race against Hogan that Trone could not bring. One is the female thing, and the other one is being black. Now, I think, quite frankly, Hogan is taking the female issue away from her by coming out early as being pro-choice. I think the issue of abortion is a red herring to begin with, because it ignores the fact that the aspect that most people agree on, and that is that a woman who's been the victim of rape, a woman who's been the victim of incest, a woman who's been the victim whose pregnancy has resulted from any unlawful, unwilling, and involuntary act ought to have the right, at least up to a certain time, to terminate that pregnancy. Most people agree with that without regard to political party, sex, age, or race. That's the point that nobody wants to talk about. They want to talk about the difference between pro-choice and pro-life. Well, Hogan has taken that issue away by saying he's pro-choice. Now the only issue that Angela brings to the race that Trump couldn't bring is the fact is being black. Now how that's going to translate. Now she got away with that, with not addressing that issue in that way against Trump.
I'm glad you said that.
Because she got away with that because of Trump. He came up with he helped her out with
Jigaboo.
Jigaboo card. That's right. And also he helped her out because people resented the classism that he represented. You know, how dare you show off by spending $50 million when I can't even pay my rent? How dare you show off by spending $50 million saying you want to represent me when I still got to make choices between bread and butter and car payments? So the people resented the classism and generally, and black folk resented the jigaboo comment specifically. Now, but so that helped her out. She didn't have to go black to beat Trone in that respect. He beat himself in that respect. But now, how does being black help her in the race against Hogan? Well, she still carries the presumption that there is a difference, and that presumption will give her a huge block of support. But will that be enough to carry over the finish line? I don't really know. She may actually have to do something more affirmative in that regard. I don't know what it is, but I think she may have to do something more affirmative.
There's this notion that the Republicans preferred going against Brooks than Trump. Andy?
Yes, because once she's going to polarize the electorate. When you polarize the electorate, you're going to have a bunch of people who say one thing and do something else in the voting booth. She like, the thing is, Hogan versus Trump would have been an even keel, just two random white dudes, where it would have just been about defining yourself. What are you going to bring to the table? Also, Brooks v. Hogan adds extra factors. Okay, I'm voting for her because she's a woman. I'm voting for her because she's black. She doesn't ever have to actually run on the issues, neither does Hogan. Now, Hogan pulling out that wedge issue with the women's with the abortion, smooth move. But what's the next wedge issue? It can't be blackness or that's good. Like who's to say? Like, you know, she might polarize it based on race, and every single black voter in the state shows up and we win. But I mean, also let's see what the probabilities of every single black voter in the state showing up. That's a different ballgame, man. It's not Obama. Now,
that's interesting. You mentioned the 2012. I guess you were talking about the 2012 Obama race, where actually more black people voted in raw numbers than white people. So that had Obama received every black vote, which he didn't, but had he received every black vote, he'd have been president without a single white vote. Now we haven't figured out how to use that yet. We haven't figured out how to take that, to reduce that to the LCD, the lowest common denominator. We haven't figured out how to apply that at the state and local level yet, at least in a predictable way, in a consistent way. Once we learn how to do that, we can win anything. We can win anything.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Now, the one good thing that's playing well for Also Brooks, that's probably going to be good for Also Brooks, is that the party is the Republican Party is fractured in Maryland, and they're now the RNC is dropping money in Maryland, so she's gonna need a little more than 20 mil to walk this thing against not a little more, a lot more than 20 mil to walk this thing versus Hogan, because there's gonna be so much dark money coming from left and right. There's going to be dark money coming out of PA, dark money coming out of Delaware, dark money coming out of Virginia. Everything just to move Republicans. Now, you got to remember that all of this money is going and split into different camps. You got the Hogan Republicans and you got the Trump Republicans, and each side is bringing in their own. And they're trying to bring it all together with one unity slate. They're trying. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off.
I got to ask you, what went through the campaign's minds when that bridge went down, Mr. Bob? When you saw that bridge go, was Sheila like, damn, God don't want me to win? All you saw was Brandon and Wes and Brandon, on Meet the Press, on every top news show. My God, she had to just want to just like, well, damn, throw your hands up in the air and say liberation. Make you want to holler.
We are so gullible as a people. We have such a low bar when it comes to expectations or demonstrations of leadership. I never figured out how standing in front of a camera smiling is evidence of real leadership about anything, other than the fact that you knew where the camera was. You know,
and then you had the Bible thing going on.
Yeah. It's a dog and pony show. It's a dog and pony show. I don't think, you know, Westmore's not an engineer. Brandon Scott's not an engineer. And even if there were, neither one of them have anything to do with the design and construction of the new Key Bridge. So being in front of a camera is not any demonstration of real leadership as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, our Marine divers, they were in the water.
Yeah.
They couldn't see in front of them.
Right.
Listen, this is going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. You know, it's crazy.
You ain't go for that, Andy.
Listen, he handled it well. That's all I can say. He got the trash out. People, you know, had a few casualties. He did the news thing well. That's it's one of those situations where it's like some people say, "Oh yeah, George Bush won re-election because he was at war," and you know, wartime presidents get re-elected. I guess that's similar concept where a disaster time mayor gets re-elected, but you know,
with the few minutes
never
left,
ran, so we don't know.
With a few minutes left, Mr. Bob, can you define to me what our Black agenda ought be for the record?
America owes Black people a debt, and ain't nothing gonna be settled till the debt is paid. But let me be clear, I'm talking about reparation. But let me also be clear that when I say reparation, I don't mean that everybody Black. First of all, I'm talking about Black folk who have a legacy of slavery. I don't mean the ones who just got here, right? But I also don't mean that everybody Black gets a check in the mail. That's not what I mean by reparation. Yes, if you can prove through your lineage that something specifically was taken away from your family, and yes, you should get compensated for that. But when I say reparation, I'm talking about a fund that's created and managed for the benefit of the Black community as a whole. I'm talking about a fund that would provide meaningful employment at job at levels where you can support the family without having to work 3 jobs. It's not a revolving door. I'm talking about that kind of fund to support Black folk until America. And when I say America, I didn't say white people. Be clear about it. I have to be clear about that. When I say America owes a debt, America owes the debt, just like it owes a debt on general obligation bonds. That means everybody in America has to contribute to paying that debt to the extent of their ability and culpability. Until that debt is paid, nothing's going to be settled, because underlying that debt is the principle of who is in charge. Who does the country belong to? What does white supremacy really mean? And the fact of the matter is, it means as much to Black people as it does to white people. For different reasons.
How about you, Andy? I'll take that check.
Well, if you ask me what needs to be a part of the Black agenda needs to transcend party lines. We need to have equal representation in the Republican Party as we do in the Democratic Party. Because if 30% of the Republican vote was a Black voting bloc, half of this BS that we watch play out wouldn't happen. The discussion of us getting reparations might actually make it through. It might actually be be looked at properly, because it's, there's not one side. We've left a space for racists in American government by letting them have a whole party to themselves and letting them have ballot access. We're letting them have this by allowing people to tell us that, oh, if you're Black, you need to be Democrat.
Oh, you mean President Biden? Didn't he say if you're not Black if you don't vote for me?
Mm-hmm. The gall. I don't know where he buys his audacity from, but he must get it wholesale.
I remember when he said that the Republicans are going to put Black people back in slavery.
Okay. Yeah. People who say stuff like that, I wonder, do they think that we're just gonna willy nilly go back in slavery? Just gonna be like, oh yeah, hey, listen, take my
Well,
guns,
I put it,
put the shackles on me.
if the libertarians can have a party, why can't we? If the no-namers can have a party, why can't we? Why do we start off with the premise that if we are going to have effective power, that we got to extract it from some organization that we in fact will never have control over?
Well, it probably has something to
can,
do with the fact that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers caught a bullet trying to speak up for us.
Well, there's nobody said it was going to be easy, and there've always been those who have caught bullets. We don't know their names, or we don't know the names of all of them, but there's been bloodshed, and unfortunately there will be bloodshed going forward. But the notion
here's what I want to say.
Huh?
I want to say to your point, right? Why can't we start our own? It's like, yeah, sure, we can start our own. In practice, in theory, that sounds great, but taking over the machines that have served to oppress us will be way more effective than going and clashing with these titans in their machines, because we built the machine with what we had available, and they still have their big joints and all of their firepower, and nothing curtailing them. None of our own people and moving the numbers. So now what do we like? At the end of the day, every big if we're gonna, even if we build our own machine, we still gotta infiltrate theirs. We can't just let them continue to carry on. We have to take over their operations.
And the history doesn't support that. We were very successful during Reconstruction. We elected over 2,000 Black people in federal, state, and local government.
How many of them were Republican?
Wait a second. And the notion that we can infiltrate their organizations and influence them sufficiently to protect and preserve and nurture our interests has been tried since Reconstruction, and it hasn't worked. When it comes to Black folks' issues, we're going to get to you in a minute. Just wait a minute. It's not time yet. Or just wait a minute. It's not time yet. Or just hold on a minute. We'll get to it. Or just you're too impatient. Or you're too aggressive. Or you're too militant. Or you're too this. There's always a reason why we can't. The established organizations that are run by white folk can never seem to make our issues a priority. And believe me, they're never going to. The notion
that's because we keep asking. That's because we keep asking. I mean, I'm not saying we need to go in there and ask them for a place. No, I'm talking about we're going in there and taking over. We're not asking for shit. We're taking it.
The best way to show that you demand your own is to have your own, not to demand a piece of theirs. As I said, we have the power. We showed it in 2012. That same block of Black folk can elect. If we can elect a president, we can elect a governor, we can elect a senator, we can elect anybody we want. We don't need to be Republican or Democrat to do that. All we have to be is who we are.
Two questions. Who does Sheila Dixon pass the ball to, and who does Brandon Scott pass the ball to?
Sheila doesn't have a ball to pass.
To Kaylin Young.
Sheila doesn't have a ball to pass.
And
Brandon doesn't have his own ball. He's playing with somebody else's.
Oh, damn. So Zeke just walks right in there?
Probably.
Likely.
Damn, I feel so sterile in a 63% Black, 73% Black and brown city. Damn, we just gave away the damn game.
See, Donnie,
listen. As long as the turnout is like what it was this year, Zeke walks right in.
You continue to make a mistake. You continue to define Black folk simply by the color of the skin. I'm telling you, you got to look inside the heart and the head if you want to find what being Black really means. And the fact of the matter, we have been trained to support Zeke over Mosby, even though Nick shot himself in the butt in many ways, but we've been trained to prefer white over Black. We've been trained to believe that white ice is colder. We can't overcome that training. What we're showing, we haven't overcome that training in 400 years. Despite our education, you went to Morehouse, I went to Morgan, but we still come out believing white is right. We still come out believing if you're white, If you're white, you're right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, you're mellow. If you're black, get back. We still believe that. You can still hear our kids saying that on school buses. We can still show, if you still put the dolls in front of little kids, they're still going to pick the white doll over the black doll. Still today in 2024. The issue of being black goes much deeper than the skin color. We have to define it for ourselves. That's our problem. We accept from white folks that simply dark skin means you're black. That's not true.
Folks, we're going to suggest that you get a passport if you don't have one and look into dual residency. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Happy Monday. Happy Memorial Day. Mr. Bob, as you started before we were officially online, you mentioned how today we pay homage. Would you say something to that effect before we close out?
Yes. Today is a day when we think about those family members and friends who have passed on, whether in the military or not. There were 6 of us, that 3 of us left. We honor our mother and our brothers today. And I hope that all of you out there, take time to honor those who you love, who've gone on with the ancestors, and take time to really think about that today, because our days here are short and we don't have as much time today as we had yesterday.
Andy, any thoughts?
No, not really. I don't want to take away from what the good brother just said. So I just want to ditto him.
I'd like to thank my mama up in heaven for sacrificing her last for me to get a couple of years down in Atlanta at a time when a young black man needs to be out of Baltimore. I think at 18, our young men need to go to college or somewhere, but get them out of Baltimore. Let them see the world. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and I pray the best for you and yours. Good morning, world.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.